Hey everybody, Lucas here, and in this video we're going to take a look at Trello to see how well it works for a getting things done system, or GTD for short. So as a tool, Trello has been around for a couple of years. I remember using it quite a few years ago as a student, working on pre-GTD projects, moving cards around on Kanban boards. And you can still do that, but you can do much more with it nowadays. In fact, I think we've got a pretty good system here, and we're going to take a look at it starting now. So what we're looking at first here is the welcome screen. And the welcome screen is the central hub of your workspace. Now, Trello uses quite a few terms, and the first one to familiarize ourselves with is the workspace. This is the central hub that contains everything related to your own personal system. Now, Trello is also designed as a collaborative workspace with multiple people or multiple teams within a business, within a company. You can see I'm on a trial for business class, and that's for a reason. I mean, that's where the money is for them, of course. But in most use cases, I think you won't need multiple workspaces if you're using this for personal productivity. That's why we only have one workspace. And in this video, we're going to look at my own, which I dubbed Lucas's GTD setup. Now, the second level of taxonomies here is the boards. Now, boards are a collection of lists and items within those lists. And that's really handy because in GTD, it's all about the lists and how you organize them. So let's take a look at one of those lists, and we will go through every list throughout this video. So the first one is actually the most important one here, and I've called this the Runway Board. And if you're familiar with the GTD book, David Allen talks about multiple horizons of focus. And the higher you go, the more broad it becomes and the more all-encompassing it becomes. Now, this is the runway level. So that means this is for anything that I can take an action on right now. Preferably, it's only for next actions. But to make it work within Trello, I've customized it a little bit while staying to the true GTD spirit, I hope. So let me know what you think about this in the comments, by the way. Always curious to hear your feedback. On the left-hand side here, we have our first list. This is the inbox. So we can drop anything in here and press enter, and it's there. So for capturing items, I think this works really well. It's pretty quick to do, and you can just drop it in the list here. You can move it around to further process as needed. Now, where do we process it into? Obviously, we have next actions. If we have an item that we can mark as finished, we have a separate list for that. And then there's a few items that we might not have direct control over, either because it's not the right time or the right place, but we still want to keep them here because there are still things that we can make a decision on at any given time. In other words, we can shift our judgment about these items at any given time, although we might not be able to act on them directly. Now, those are the tickler file, which contains any item you want to be reminded about. It contains someday maybe, so any idea that you want to process later on. It contains items that you're waiting for, and it contains items in terms of talking points. So this is the agendas list, and you can see that they have some self-explanatory titles, but not all of them. Like ask about reports. Well, who do I ask? Or my next action, find my tools. Well, what's the context? How long will that take me? Or what is this even related to, right? So on its own, these lists and these items are called cards, by the way. Important to note, that's the other specific Trello term that we're going to use throughout the video here. And the important thing is that you can label these. Now, this is essential for any GTD system, especially when it's concerning next actions. So how can we label them? We can use the labels functionality here. And by pressing plus, we can add any label or create new ones. Now, I've created a few already. And in this case, the Find My Tools next action has to do with a project that I'm going to show you in just a moment. So I've marked it as such. It probably won't take me more than 10 minutes to do. And I can perform this action when I'm at home. So that's my context. And I'm also color coding these labels so that any context is always light blue, any time related item is always orange, and any area of focus or project it's related to is always marked green. That's a color coding system I've used throughout my GTD life, so to speak, and you can also see me using that in tools like Asana or Evernote, for example, which you can find in my channel. So we've already defined this next action here, so we can go ahead and perform it. So what about processing a new item from the inbox to the next action, to the tickler file, to someday maybe, and so forth? This is something you can do manually like we've done before. So I can clarify the item and add a label to it if it's the next action. So let's say it also has to do with this project that I defined first. It takes 30 minutes, and I can also do it at home just for sake of demonstration. And then I can move it here. Perfect, just fine. But there's an easier way. And there comes yet another custom Trello term, which is the butler. Now, the butler is basically a way for you to create automation inside of Trello. And you can use these very creatively. I don't think I've really fully utilized it. I think I'm only scratching the surface here, but this is a very exciting feature in my opinion. Because if we press the card again, on the right hand side, we can see a couple of automations that I've created, but it might inspire you to create many more ones that are appropriate to your system. One of them is, for example, to move something into the next action. Another one is to move it into someday maybe, or the tickler file, or to mark something complete. So if I have something sitting in the inbox and I can complete it in 2 minutes, I just go ahead and do it and mark it complete, right? If I want to move it into next actions because I've defined it, which I have, then I do it as such. That way I do not have to move it around manually. Very easy to do. So I'm going to press it to demonstrate, and you can see that now the item has moved from inbox to next actions. You can always move it back though. And if we want to move it to the tickler file, for whatever reason, we can do that. And then it's sitting there. So very easy to do. So let me show you how that works exactly. Card button is the one that we're looking for here, to be exact. Now, we've created buttons here. So what we can do is create a button. And let's say we want to move something to agendas, which we haven't set up yet. We can call it that. We can select an icon. Let's use the text balloon, very fitting. And then we can add an action. In other words, what should happen when we press this button? In this case, what we want to do is move the card, which is already a default option, but you can see there are many other options available, so you can get really creative here. And we want to move the card to the agendas list, which is within this board. Now, you're not confined to this board. You can select others as well. But in this case, you want to stay within the runway. So we can just select that and be done with it. So we can select this action to be performed by clicking plus. And now when we save it, this is a new automation that we've added, a new option that we've added to items that we can move around using these buttons here. So you can see now the agendas button is there. I'm clicking it. And now my talking point is present under agendas. Now we looked at how we can label next actions. So what is the label we can use for agendas? Well, what I do here is just remove the labels that we already have as such. And let's say this is concerning my colleague Mike. Well, I have a label for Mike, and all my people, basically, I just, label them as pink. Any person or any meeting that I have any talking point for. And there we go. We added a talking point. Easy does it. Now, this looks good, but if you remember, one of my critiques from the video I had about Asana is that we cannot easily see the context. I mean, we can see the next actions themselves, but how can we actually see and filter for specific contexts? Because I only want to see what I'm able to do right now when I'm in a specific context, so to speak. So let's imagine that I'm currently at home. I want to see anything that I can do at home. So what we can do there is go to search cards. And after that, we can open up a menu that expands to show any available label. And from there, we can just select any label and only items, only cards, I should say, that fit within this search will appear. So now, because I selected home, only the home item shows up, but all the others have disappeared. Now you can imagine that if your next actions list is pretty long with 50 items or so, divided amongst 10 contexts, this is super helpful, especially because you can also multi-select and, for example, combine a context with a certain time. And that's where it gets really powerful. So the ability to filter and search for specific items like this, that's really good. And when it comes to talking points, well, we just search for the person that we're going to speak to or whatever, and we have it already set up. So if I'm looking for anything that has to do with Mike, I just search for his name. And now when I set up the filter, these items appear and I can go into my meeting with Mike knowing what I have to discuss with him. So searching, filtering works really, really well, works across several dimensions, across all the lists we've got set up. Now let's imagine that we've completed this item. We can mark it complete. And in that case, it moves to the done list. Now it's good to have it there, at least in the short term, because what if your definition of done changes at some point in time? That's possible, right? Maybe you thought you found your tools, but you actually discovered there's one of them missing and you might have to move it back for a short while. This really allows you to do that super easily and swiftly. At some point though, maybe during your weekly review, you want to make sure that your completed items are no longer cluttering your system. You can really consider them finished. That's where there's another automation that we've set up with the butler, and this time it's on the board level. So in this case, it checks for anything that's complete. In other words, anything that's in the done list, because that's how we've defined complete items, and archive them. They're not removed. We can still retrieve them if needed, but this way they're out of our view. Just by pressing one button, it clears the done list. So this is a really good way to keep the system clean, relevant, and actual. And I think staying true to the GTD fashion very well. So that's the Runway board. It's the most important one, which is also why I've started, and it's for easy access. It's available at the left top corner here. We're not done yet though. So the Runway level is super important, but you also want to have some higher levels, some higher horizons of focus. One of them being actual projects. So you saw that I had an item that said, find my tools. What did that have to do with? Well, that was this particular project. The project is called Fix the Kitchen Closet. It's broken, like maybe there's a broken door in there. And from a project view, we can see that these items are somewhat sequential, because there's no point for me to start fixing the kitchen closet door if I don't even have my tools yet. That's why I grouped them into separate lists, and from left to right, these are sequential. First, I gotta find my tools, then I gotta fix the door, and when I'm done, I can restock the kitchen shelf and close the door because now it's fixed. And there's also a separate column here for support material, and maybe it's an IKEA shelf, an IKEA closet, and I have the book with me here. I can upload that as an attachment within this cart, and then I have the PDF available for me to open straight from the project view. So that's really useful, and again, a really flexible way, creative way to use Trello within GTD fashion. And I think that's where you can start to see already it's so powerful, because it has so much freedom in how you can use it. So what we did to add this to next actions was with another automation. With the butler, I've set up a specific next action item, a next action button, I should say, and you can see the copy symbol. Well, that's on purpose, because what it will do is not move this item from projects to Runway. It will copy it into the Runway board, because removing it from here would mean you lose the overview that you want when you go to this particular board. So let's assume that we found our tools as we demonstrated previously. And now it's time, or at least this item becomes relevant, because we found our tools and we're now able to actually start working. So what we can do is use the automation, press next action. And what this does, this button is gonna move the item from the project board into the next actions list on the Runway board, as you can see here, the way we've set it up. So let's go ahead and try that. We're going to click the card. We're going to press the button. We're going to wait a few seconds and it says success. So that's a good sign. And yes, indeed, we can see now that it has moved, or I should say copied, into the next actions list. Now we can go ahead and add our labels to it. Let's say it takes 30 minutes. There we go. Done. And now when I want to know what I can do when I'm at home, I just use the filters as we showed you before. And there we go. We see what we need to do. And anything that's here is relevant in terms of timing because we've moved it from the project board into the Runway board. Now we can go through the other horizons of focus, which are a bit easier and require less automation because these are more of a matter of defining them once or at least a couple of times throughout your life, I suppose, redefining them, providing input here and reflecting on these items with some regularity. So areas of focus, you might have some items here related to, your role in your family, with regards to your friends, your health, your finance, your job, etc. Goals are also something you can define here as such. Maybe you have a goal to renovate the house and you can break that up into sub goals. So what I've done here is create a list for the main goal, and then a sub goal could be to renovate the kitchen. Well, what's related to renovating the kitchen? That's actually to fix the kitchen closet. So what I've done is copy the URL of the project board for that particular project and added it to the description. And as you can see, it automatically formats it in a very nice to read way. So you can add any other projects here to kind of keep an overview and mark progress as such here in your goals overview in the goals board. Now, when it comes to vision or your purpose, again, these are more a matter of definition. So not much time needed to go over those. You can just add a card, put in your definition, your answer to these questions to define your vision. Now we go to reference, and this is often a tough one for many task managers, for example, because they're really not set up as a reference cabinet. So many of these fall short when it comes to really creating a holistic GTD system. Trello, though, it seems to be really good in this regard as well. So you can set up your reference cabinet in multiple ways. I always make it kind of yellow orangey. That's why it's colored as such, but you can apply any design to any board as you see fit. And I've chosen here to sort it by file type and maybe some other taxonomy, some categories that are relevant to your life. But still, you can also use labels for that as well. In this case, for recipes, you might have, the general recipes list, but you can use labels to segment breakfast, lunch, and dinner recipes. Just an idea. This is really all up to you. You can store files, as you can see here. Let's say this is my driver's license. Obviously, it's not, but you can easily access it from here. The attachment even becomes visible within the board view. So they've really thought this through. It's really a good holistic system also for reference. And it also makes it easy to find. So what if I want to find my driver's license copy for whatever reason? I just search, and there we go, including the image, the search result appears, and that would appear from any board within this workspace. So that's really a great way to organize, to search, and to filter. And again, labels are your best friend here. So here too, we can search cards, we can expand, and we can filter for particular labels. Anything that has to do with my car, such as my driver's license, boom, filter it, and only those items appear. Invoices I may have paid that I want to store, here, there we go. It just makes it so much easier to keep an overview for what's relevant in the moment you're looking for it. So I mentioned design. I kept it pretty simple here, but you can really design any boards to your liking, which includes color, which includes images as well, though. And it even includes stickers. I think this is too much of a gimmick. You can add kind of a sticker like this to any item if it works. Yes, there we go. I don't really see the need for this, but if you're so inclined and want to make it visual, you can customize it to your liking. But what I especially think some people might like is the ability to change your background using photos. Now you can upload your own, but also there's a partnership with Unsplash, which is this huge library of stock images. So about this project here, we can maybe add an image of a kitchen And now we can see hundreds of images of kitchens that might look like ours, and just use that to help us visually remind what is this about. So now you can see there's a background here as well as on the thumbnail. So moving back to the home page to make sure and to recap how well this really works, you can easily access any board from the left-hand side or from here. From the Runway boards, you can use cards, move them along, use automations, use filters to search for them, and then make it easy for you in all those ways combined to engage with your next action at this moment in this context. So overall, I think Trello is a really great system. We've only touched the surface. There's also lots of integrations available that I haven't touched on for the sake of simplicity, but they might make your GTD system even stronger. So what I would recommend all of you is to go ahead and try it. You can always sign up for a free trial as I have here, and let me know what you find. How does GTD in Trello work for you? Very curious to hear your feedback. And thank you so much for watching, and thank you for all the support so far that you've shown to this channel and to this series. It's really motivating. So just wanted to get that out there. Keep it up, as will I, and see you in the next video.